Hi and welcome. I'm Andy Miocha and you're watching A News. Here are the headlines. Sweden's deadliest attack leaves 11 dead at Örebro Adult School. Prime Minister calls it a painful day. Ukrainian president expresses readiness for peace talks with Russia, but insists US and European involvement is essential. Donald Trump's plan for the US to take over the Gaza Strip draws strong reactions worldwide. Thank you for tuning in. Sweden is in mourning following the deadliest mass shooting in the country's history. Police have confirmed that 11 people were killed at an adult education center in Örebro in Tuesday's attack.
Sweden's deadliest attack has seen 11 people killed at a mass shooting at an adult education center in Örebro. 6 people were injured and are in hospital. 5 of those are with gunshot wounds. It happened at the Resperska School for Adults on Tuesday afternoon. Police believe the gunman acted alone and think he's the one of the dead. Police say the terrorism was not currently suspected as a motive. They have since searched several addresses in the town. Swedish Prime Minister Ulf Kristersson described the tragic event as a painful day.
We have seen brutal, deadly violence against completely innocent people. This is the worst mass shooting in Swedish history. There are still a lot of answers missing, and I can't give them the answers either. But there will come a time when we will learn what has happened and what motives may have been behind it.
Worried relatives searched hospitals for information about their loved ones. Among them was Ali El Muqdad, who was looking for his brother-in-law, whom he believed to be a student there.
I am a relative of her father, who is my sister's husband. We've been trying to get hold of him all day. We haven't been successful. We've called his phone. We don't have more information, so we're here at the hospital, trying to get information about him.
One of Sweden's neighbors, Denmark, has offered full support. Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen calls the situation terrible during her visit to London.
I am so sad, and all my thoughts are with the victims and their families and with the entire Swedish community and society. It's a terrible situation, and of course our neighboring country have all of our support.
Fatal attacks at schools are rare in Sweden. 10 people were killed in 7 incidents of deadly violence at education centers between 2010 and 2022, according to the Swedish National Council for Crime Prevention.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has expressed readiness for peace talks with Russia, but insists US and European involvement is essential. The Kremlin dismissed his remarks as, quote, empty words.
Ukraine has signalled its readiness for peace talks with Russia, but insists that the US and Europe must be involved to ensure its security. President Volodymyr Zelensky emphasised that any discussions should address both Russia's military aggression and Ukraine's NATO ambitions.
Let's be honest. If our allies believe we must move to the diplomatic track, and I believe we are ready to move to the diplomatic track, there must be the United States of America, Europe, Ukraine, and Russia. Isn't it a compromise already? We will talk to Putin. A conversation with him is a compromise for him.
In a recent update, Zelensky estimated Ukrainian casualties at 45,100 dead and 390,000 injured, providing rare figures on the human cost of the conflict. Ukrainian President also announced that his team has been in talks with US President Trump's National Security Advisor and Special Envoy on Ukraine, working to arrange a visit by a US delegation. Zelensky's Chief of Staff, Andriy Yermak, discussed the battlefield situation and Ukraine's mobilization efforts with Trump's team, emphasizing the need for direct talks between the two leaders. Meanwhile, Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov dismissed Zelensky's readiness to negotiate with Putin as empty words. However, Russia welcomed US President Trump's stance against Ukraine joining NATO. Foreign Minister Lavrov highlighted Trump's criticism of Biden's approach to the issue.
For the first time, President Trump, in one of his first speeches, criticizing the position of the Biden administration on the Ukrainian crisis, bluntly said that one of the main mistakes was drawing Ukraine into NATO, and that if Trump had been president in the previous 4 years, that would not have happened, and the conflict would not have started.
On the ground, the conflict continues to escalate. A Ukrainian drone strike overnight ignited a fire at an oil depot in Russia's Krasnodar region, though no casualties were reported. This attack is part of a broader series of Ukrainian drone strikes targeting Russian energy infrastructure. Meanwhile, Russia launched 104 drones and 2 Iskander-M missiles at Ukraine overnight. Ukrainian air defences successfully shot down 57 of the drones, with no damage or casualties reported in Kyiv, despite explosions heard as air defences intercepted the attacks. The Russian Defense Ministry also claimed that its troops had gained control of the settlements of Baranivka and Novomlinsk in the Donetsk and Kharkiv regions of eastern Ukraine.
Ukraine and Russia have completed another prisoner swap, with both sides securing the release of 150 soldiers. The release of Ukrainian captives was confirmed by the Ukrainian president. Russia's defense ministry also confirmed the swap, adding that its freed soldiers are now in Belarus, receiving medical and psychological support. The exchange, brokered by the United Arab Emirates, follows a similar deal struck in December last year. Greenland's prime minister called for an early election on March 11th, amid tensions caused by U.S. President Donald Trump's threat to take over the Arctic island. The key issues of the campaign will be Greenland's independence from Denmark and international relations.
Greenland's Prime Minister announced a general election on March 11th, amid renewed interest from U.S. President Donald Trump in acquiring the Arctic island. Key issues in the campaign include Greenland's independence, relations with Denmark and the U.S., and its economy, which relies on fishing and Danish subsidies. Trump recently revived his 2019 proposal to acquire Greenland, suggesting military or economic means. In response, Greenland lawmakers moved to ban foreign and anonymous donations and tighten real estate regulations to curb external influence. Despite its mineral wealth, Greenland remains open for business, but does not want to join the US. Prime Minister Mette Egde, in a social media post, urged unity during this unprecedented time, though he did not mention Trump. Egde, who turns 38 on election day, leads a coalition of the Inuit Ataqatigiit and Siumut parties.
I think it's good, and the timing is just right, that the people are going to the polls and then make the decision that is necessary. So, we're fine with that, and we also voted for it.
The push for full independence from Denmark has gained momentum, though parties differ on timing. The opposition Naleiraq party, which holds 5 of the 31 parliamentary seats, is the only one demanding an immediate break.
We have last week presented 5 pillars for our coming election strategy, but if I can sum it up, it's much easier just to mention some of the headlines. The most important one is to start the process of independence from Denmark.
A recent Berlingske Mitsiak poll found most Greenlanders would vote for independence, but 45% would oppose it if it hurt living standards, underscoring uncertainty about the path forward.
Anti-government protests in Serbia continue, with teachers and farmers joining students in the demonstrations. The Balkan nation has been gripped by protests since the tragic roof collapse at the Novi Sad railway station last November that claimed 15 lives.
Thousands took to the streets in Serbia's 4th largest city of Kragujevac on Tuesday. They're demonstrating against the government's reaction to a tragic event that saw a concrete canopy at Novi Sad railway station collapse and kill 15 people last November. Teachers and farmers have now joined the students in the anti-government protests.
What I see as a solution is that they, the government, will slowly step back. They will have to, because I see that something unexpected has happened to the president now, and that is the people have risen up.
While prosecutors have charged 13 individuals in connection with the incident, protesters and opposition parties say the main cause is corruption and mismanagement within the government.
The issues have grown increasingly complex for the past 12 to 13 years. It's illusory to anticipate their resolution to be so easy. If evil has been accumulating for 12 to 13 years, it may require several additional months for it to go away.
Demonstrators are demanding a transparent investigation and accountability for those responsible.
I see the way out in the fact that everything will be solved by meeting the demands of the students, and that the state will side with the students and recognize the demands as they are, which is that the institutions do their job.
Protests have continued for months across the country. In response to the demonstrations, the country's Prime Minister, Milos Vučević, resigned a week ago. President Alexander Vučić will decide on whether to hold parliamentary elections in April to form a new government.
US President Donald Trump's plan for the United States to take over the Gaza Strip and resettle Palestinians outside of the enclave drew criticism and rejection from capitals around the world and international organizations.
US President Donald Trump suggested that displaced Palestinians in Gaza be permanently resettled outside the enclave and proposed the US take ownership in redeveloping the area into, quote, the Riviera of the Middle East. He presented the ideas at a joint press conference with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu following their talks in the White House. Jordan's King Abdullah rejected any attempts to annex land and displace Palestinians. Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas said the Palestinians will not relinquish their land, and that the Gaza Strip is an integral part of the land of the State of Palestine, along with the West Bank and East Jerusalem. Egypt, who had rejected Trump's proposal that it and Jordan take in Gazans, stressed the need for reconstruction without moving the Palestinians. Saudi Arabia rejected any attempts to displace the Palestinians from their land, reiterating it would not normalize ties with Israel without the establishment of a Palestinian state. Turkish Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan called Trump's comments unacceptable, saying that leaving Palestinians out of the equation would lead to more conflict. German Foreign Minister Annalena Baerbock said Gaza belongs to Palestinians and their expulsion would be unacceptable. Paris and Madrid also opposed Trump's idea. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer said Palestinians must be allowed home and to rebuild on the way to a two-state solution. Moscow and Beijing both cited the two-state solution as the right track, with Russia saying that it's the only possible option. UN Human Rights Office stated that any forcible transfer in or deportation of people from occupied territory is strictly prohibited. Hamas said Trump's plan would put oil on the fire in the region, while the Israeli foreign minister defended the plan, calling Gaza a, quote, failed experiment. Trump's Gaza plan announcement comes after the ceasefire deal between Israel and Hamas came into effect on January 19th, halting a 15-month war. Talks on the second phase of the deal, that should see all remaining hostages freed and the ceasefire become permanent, are set to be underway in Doha.
Before meeting Netanyahu, Trump signed an order reimposing his maximum pressure campaign on Iran in efforts to stop the country from developing a nuclear weapon, an ambition that Tehran denies. For more on Trump's order, we go to Washington and our Ubay Shabander.
President Donald Trump has signed a presidential memorandum ordering the reimposition of a maximum pressure campaign on the government of Iran. President Trump has ordered his Treasury Department and other members of his cabinet to take all measures necessary to bring Iran's oil export to international markets down to zero. The hope here is that curtailing Iran's ability to export its energy supplies will put pressure on Iran to stop developing its covert nuclear program. The Trump administration believes that Iran is also developing nuclear-capable ballistic missile technology and that it is still continuing undeclared nuclear sites that are not subject to inspection by the International Energy Agency. President Trump, in a press conference, said that he did not want to take these measures and that he had hoped a diplomatic solution would be possible with Iran. All he wanted was for the Iranian government to not pursue nuclear weapons. Clearly here, the Trump administration and President Trump himself believes that the Iranian government is still fully intent on pursuing nuclear weapons. The hope here is that this maximum pressure campaign would put significant pressure on Iran's economy, including pressure on Iran's ability to export oil to Chinese markets, and that would press the Iranian governments to go back to the negotiating table. For now, clearly here, President Trump is taking a page from his first term, saying that President Biden's sanctions waivers on the Iranian economy only led to more instability in the region and a greater likelihood for Iran to reach a nuclear weapons capability. A maximum pressure campaign being ordered by President Trump on Tehran. We'll see how this all plays out. I'm Uwe Shabander here for A News in Washington, D.C.
The first U.S. flight carrying migrants to Guantanamo Bay arrived Tuesday evening as part of the Trump administration's crackdown on illegal immigration. The 10 people on the flight were suspected gang members.
The first United States military aircraft carrying detained migrants to Guantanamo Bay has landed in Cuba. This comes as U.S. President Donald Trump's administration prepares to potentially house tens of thousands of migrants at a naval base in the country, which for decades was primarily used to detain foreigners associated with the September 11 attacks. Trump says he wants the Pentagon and Department of Homeland Security to expand a migrant detention facility at the base to hold more than 30,000 migrants. Military flights are a costly way to transport migrants. Reports suggest that a military deportation flight to Guatemala last week likely cost at least over $4,600 per migrant. Officials say the first flight to Guantanamo Bay carried up to 10 immigrants.
Japan had allocated $1.5 million in aid last year for Afghanistan to support Afghan returnees from Iran and Pakistan. Our Tamim Bahiz has more on that from Kabul.
In Kabul, Mauli Abdul Kabir, the acting Minister of Refugees and Returnees, met with Japan's Ambassador Takayushi Kurumaya. The Japanese envoy highlighted his country's commitment to humanitarian aid, noting that Japan provided $1.5 million in assistance last year for Afghan returnees from Iran and Pakistan. He also reaffirmed Japan's continued support for reintegration efforts. Meanwhile, Deputy Prime Minister Mullah Abdul Ghani Baradar held talks with the Deputy Head of the United Nations Assistance Mission in Afghanistan. Baradar expressed gratitude for the organization's relief efforts following recent natural disasters, but urged the UN to shift its focus towards development projects to boost Afghanistan's economy. Since the Taliban's return to power, international engagement has been cautious. Humanitarian aid remains a priority, but economic partnerships have been selective. While many countries have scaled back their involvement due to human rights concerns, others see economic opportunities. China has taken the lead in investment, particularly in mining and infrastructure. It is actively involved in copper extraction near Kabul and has helped expand fiber optic networks and railway links. Regional players like Pakistan, Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, Turkmenistan, India and Russia are also engaged in trade, energy and infrastructure projects. Their approach is pragmatic, balancing economic interests with geopolitical realities. Still, the global community remains divided. While some nations see economic engagement as a necessity, others remain wary of endorsing Taliban rule without political reforms. The future of Afghanistan's economy hinges on this delicate balance. Tamim Bahis, A News, Kabul, Afghanistan.
In Gaza, another group of patients is preparing to leave the enclave to receive medical attention abroad. According to the World Health Organization, thousands in the Gaza Strip need medical evacuation.
The latest group of patients and people wounded in the Gaza conflict is set to leave the enclave for medical treatment abroad. This comes as the Rafah border crossing has been reopened following the ceasefire between Israel and Hamas, allowing for Palestinians to cross into Egypt for humanitarian purposes. Now these patients, many of whom are young amputees, gather at the European hospital in Khan Yunis, hoping to be transferred out.
Due to the war, we were unable to leave and receive treatment abroad. Thank God the war ended, and thanks to the World Health Organization, we can now leave and receive treatment. There are thousands of cases like mine or like other cases who need to receive treatment abroad. We hope they heal and are able to leave and get treatment.
Their house was bombed and his entire family was martyred. He was the only survivor. He received treatment for 2 to 3 months in the British Field Hospital in Gaza. We applied for the move and thank God the World Health Organization responded to us. We're here at the European hospital awaiting the trip out of Gaza.
Currently, the Rafah border crossing only allows for travel in one direction, from Gaza to Egypt, sparking concerns about the return of these patients. The World Health Organization says up to 14,000 critical patients need to be medically evacuated outside of Gaza to receive treatment, with 2,500 of them being children.
After Kazakhstan's authorities released the preliminary report on the cause of the Azal plane crash near Aktau in December, the country's media analyzed key findings and theories. Our Fariza Kalimurzina reports on that from Almaty.
The preliminary report on the Aktau plane crash published on February 4th has dominated discussions in Kazakhstan's media landscape. Journalists have dissected key aspects of the report, including the timeline of the aircraft's malfunctions, photographs of foreign objects found at the crash site, a detailed chronology of events, and numerous discussions surrounding the cover plan. Among the most striking headlines in Wardas, did the cover plan in Grozny contribute to the Embraer 190 crash? The outlet has published multiple articles on the preliminary findings, including experts from the crew's final communications with air traffic controllers. The Kazakh telegraph agency Kastak also weighed in, quoting its editor-in-chief Amir Kasenev. Citing details from the report, Kasenev argued that no explanation other than a deliberate attack seemed plausible. He called it a miracle that the plane reached Aktau at all and that some passengers survived. Meanwhile, Tengri News focused on the emergency response in Aktau, highlighting the actions taken by rescue teams in the aftermath of the crash. The article's comments section has been flooded with messages, particularly from Azerbaijani readers, expressing gratitude for Kazakhstan's handling of the tragedy. State media outlets such as Kazinform and Kazakhstan National TV, while referring to the same document, pointed out that the investigation outlined in the preliminary report doesn't seek to assign blame or responsibility to any party. Despite this official stance, social media has been filled with emotional responses and intense speculation. A widely shared video features the final exchange between the crew and air traffic controllers, set to a somber musical backdrop. The footage has resonated deeply with viewers, many of whom expressed their grief and solidarity. As the investigation continues, the tragedy remains a focal point of national and international attention, with many awaiting following clarity on the true cause of the disaster. From Almaty, Kazakhstan, Fariza Kalimurzina, A News.
Georgia's President Mikhail Kavelashvili addressed the parliament, laying out foreign policy priorities. He called for a reset in relations with the United States and accused EU leaders of having double standards. Our Nini Nikolaishvili brings more on that from Tbilisi.
President of Georgia, Mikhail Kavelashvili, addressed to the members of parliament at the opening of spring parliamentary sessions, shedding light on the foreign trajectory of Georgia's foreign policy. In one of his most prominent addresses, the president focused on two key areas, the relations with the EU and ties with the United States. Kavelashvili expressed hope for the reset in US-Georgian relations, emphasizing shared conservative values such as traditional family structure, Christianity and peaceful foreign policy. His remarks suggest optimism that the current US administration will closely align with Georgian priorities, potentially strengthening bilateral ties. On the other hand, Kavelashvili voiced sharp critics of Europe, accusing its leaders of applying double standards toward Georgia. He argued that despite years of efforts towards European integration, Georgia has not received the fairness and respect it deserves. The president framed this only not a political issue, but threat to Georgia's national identity. However, the head of state did not provide specific policy directions regarding dealing with the US and the EU in his speech. But however, it can be said that Georgian president is willing and interested in maintaining balanced relations with the US and the EU. Meanwhile, former President Salome Zurabishvili plans to meet EU ambassadors to discuss Georgia's democratic future and to advocate new parliamentary elections in Georgia. Her efforts add another layer of complexity to Georgia's relations between several European capitals and the EU, making it even more challenging to predict bilateral relations between Tbilisi and Brussels. This address at the opening of parliamentary session marks a significant moment for Georgia's foreign policy strategy, showcasing both the ambition and the frustration for its instructions with global powers. I'm Nina reporting from Tbilisi, Georgia, A News.
Uganda has deployed additional troops into eastern Congo, raising concerns of a wider regional conflict. The reinforcements, officially part of Operation Shuja, come as Kinshasa battles the M23 rebels, a group backed by Rwanda.
Ugandan soldiers have been deployed into eastern Congo, with estimates placing the force at around 4,000 to 5,000 troops. The move comes amid escalating tensions as the M23 rebel group continues to advance in the region. While Uganda claims its mission remains focused on tracking the allied democratic forces, analysts suggest economic and security interests are also at play. Uganda has long viewed eastern Congo as a vital economic zone, with its trade closely linked to the region. Congo's government acknowledged Uganda's military presence, but remains wary. Officials note suspicions over Uganda's role in the M23 conflict, though they stress that formal cooperation exists in fighting the ADF. Residents near Butembo reported seeing Ugandan troops moving south toward the conflict zone, further stoking fears of a direct confrontation between Ugandan and Rwandan forces. With multiple foreign armies now operating in eastern Congo, concerns are growing that the conflict could expand beyond its current front lines.
In business news, Google's parent company Alphabet has reported that its revenue has jumped in the recently ended quarter, but shares have dropped on concerns it may be pouring too much money into artificial intelligence.
Google's parent company Alphabet posted strong revenue growth, yet its stock tumbled due to concerns over soaring AI investments. The company announced plans to spend $75 billion on AI infrastructure in 2025, 29% more than Wall Street had expected, sparking investor anxiety over profitability. As a result, shares dropped 9% in extended trading, wiping out their year-to-date gains. Defending the increased spending during a conference call, CEO Sundar Pichai emphasized that Google's Gemini AI models are on par with China's rising AI competitor DeepSeek. He reassured analysts that AI-related operational costs would decrease over time. Alphabet's CFO detailed that the bulk of its 2025 capital expenditures will go toward expanding server capacity and data centers, with up to $18 billion earmarked for the first quarter alone. The investment sharply contrasts with DeepSeek's reported final training cost of just $6 million. The Chinese AI firm's surprisingly low-cost claim sent shockwaves through the tech sector in January, contributing to NVIDIA's record $593 billion single-day market value drop. However, U.S. AI experts argue that DeepSeek's actual training expenses were likely much higher than disclosed.
Los Angeles is still recovering from deadly wildfires that killed 29 people and displaced thousands. The star-studded Fire Aid benefit concerts have so far brought in more than $100 million for immediate relief efforts and long-term needs.
A record-breaking fundraiser has collected over $100 million for Los Angeles wildfire relief. The Fire Aid concerts featured Lady Gaga, Green Day, Billie Eilish and more, drawing millions of viewers worldwide.
Thank you for having me.
The event, held in two packed arenas, was streamed across 28 platforms, with donations coming from ticket sales, sponsorships, and online contributions. For artists like Green Day, the cause is personal.
I mean, yeah, we are Californians, and it's like Los Angeles has been like a second home for us because we're from the Bay Area, and it's something that it's LA's. Like I said, it's been a second home to us, and so we've made a lot of records here, in Hollywood, in different studios. We've been coming here for 30 years, so it was just really important for us to sort of do our part in a small way to maybe one of the most important gigs I think that we've ever played.
In early January, wildfires devastated Pacific Palisades, destroying homes and displacing thousands. Fire Aid organizers say donations remain open, with funds directed toward both immediate relief and rebuilding efforts. A committee will oversee distribution to ensure aid reaches those most in need. The Grammy Awards also have raised an extra $9 million, pushing total weekend donations to over $24 million. With communities still struggling, Fire Aid's impact is just beginning as Los Angeles moves toward recovery.
In space news, scientists say that there is a small chance that a newly detected asteroid could hit Earth in 7 years. Experts are tracking its path closely and even considering potential deflection strategies.
The European Space Agency is closely monitoring asteroid 2024 YR4, which has a 1.2% chance of impacting Earth on December 22, 2032. Initially detected in December last year by the Atlas telescope in Chile, the asteroid is estimated between 40 and 90 meters across, with 15 times more speed than a high-velocity bullet. Currently moving away from Earth, it is expected to return in 2028. Juan Luis Cano from the European Space Agency's Planetary Defense Office explains how ongoing tracking helps refine impact predictions.
Seen that the impact probability that we are assessing has been changing from day to day. And this is the result of this daily update with new observations that we are collecting from either from our teams or from other teams that are observing also this. this object. So this is what allows us to redo every day the orbit determination process and redo every day the impact monitoring process that allows us to evaluate the impact probabilities on a daily basis.
If the impact risk remains above 1%, scientists may consider planetary defense strategies, such as deflecting it with a spacecraft. However, scientists say the probability of it hitting our planet is changing over time and could fall to 0.
Well, that's all we have for you for now. Thank you for watching and do stay tuned to A News.